December 7th, 1941. The sailors aboard the USS Arizona are eating breakfast when the first Japanese bomb punches through the forward magazine. The explosion is so violent, it lifts the bow of the ship out of the water. 1,177 men die in less than 9 minutes. They never had a chance. Not because the Japanese were unstoppable, not because the attack was impossible to detect, not because America was unprepared, because one man, one general with every warning, every resource, every tool he needed, chose to do nothing. America produced some of the most brilliant military minds in human history during World War II. George Patton's Third Army swept 600 miles across France in 100 days, an advance that military historians still struggle to explain. Omar Bradley commanded 1.3 million men, so the largest American force ever assembled under a single general, and never lost a battle he planned. Dwight Eisenhower held together an alliance of massive, clashing egos and drove it straight into the heart of Nazi Germany. But rank does not equal competence. Stars on a collar do not guarantee wisdom. And while America's best generals were writing history, 5 others were ending lives. 5 generals whose failures were not just tactical, they were moral. Men who had every advantage, every warning, every opportunity to protect the soldiers under their command, and squandered it through arrogance, cowardice, or pure, staggering incompetence. This is their story, and we are going to hold nothing back. Number 5. A man so obsessed with the wrong threat that he handed Japan the greatest victory of the Pacific War on a silver platter. Number 1. A general who built himself a bomb-proof underground palace 70 miles behind the front lines and hid in it while 6,500 of his men were slaughtered. Stay with us until the end, because number 1 is not who most people expect, and the evidence against him is more damning than any textbook will tell you. These generals didn't just fail. They betrayed every man who put on a uniform, believing that the person above them had earned the right to lead. Number 5. Lieutenant General Walter Short, the general who handed Japan. Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. Two Army privates named Joseph Lockard and George Elliott are sitting at a mobile radar station at Opana Point on the northern tip of Oahu. They have been on duty since 4 a.m. and their shift ends at 7. They are about to shut the equipment down when the oscilloscope lights up with the largest return signal either man has ever seen. An enormous formation, 132 miles out, coming in fast from the north. Lockard calls the information center. He reaches a young lieutenant named Kermit Tyler. Tyler has been at his post for exactly 2 days. He listens, then tells the privates not to worry about it. He assumes they are seeing a flight of American B-17 bombers scheduled to arrive from California that morning. Don't worry about it. 46 minutes later, 353 Japanese aircraft arrive over Pearl Harbor. Within 2 hours, 2,403 Americans are dead. 1,178 more are wounded. 18 ships are sunk or severely damaged. 188 aircraft are destroyed on the ground. On the ground, where one general put them. Walter Campbell Short was born in Fillmore, Illinois in 1880. He graduated from West Point in 1902. By the time he was assigned to command the Hawaiian Department in February 1941, he had nearly 4 decades of service behind him. He was regarded as a competent, professional officer. General George Marshall personally selected him. He was given a clear mission: defend Hawaii from attack. Specifically, from Japanese attack. The entire purpose of his command was to ensure that Pearl Harbor, the anchor of the American Pacific Fleet, could not be crippled. He had everything he needed to do it. 43,000 Army troops under his command, 231 aircraft, including P-40 fighters capable of intercepting enemy bombers, 6 radar stations capable of detecting aircraft 130 miles away, anti-aircraft artillery positioned around the island, direct communication lines to Washington. Short received a war warning from Washington on November 27, 1941, 10 days before the attack. The message was explicit. Negotiations with Japan had collapsed. A hostile action was possible at any moment. All commanders were ordered to implement defensive measures. Short read it and focused entirely on the wrong threat. He was convinced, completely and utterly convinced, that the primary danger to Hawaii was sabotage by Japanese-American civilians living on Oahu. This obsession consumed his strategic thinking so completely that he designed his entire defensive posture around it. He ordered his aircraft parked wingtip to wingtip in tight rows in the center of 3 airfields, not dispersed into revetments, not hidden. Clustered together in the open, where they were easier to guard against sabotage. He kept ammunition locked in storage facilities. He restricted radar operations to training exercises, not 24-hour surveillance. He moved to Alert Level 1, the lowest defensive posture, focused on internal threats. His own chief of staff questioned the decision. Short overruled him. Washington sent a follow-up message. Short responded that he had implemented anti-sabotage measures. Nobody in Washington caught that he had gone to Alert Level 1 instead of 3. It was a catastrophic failure of communication in both directions. On the morning of December 7th, when the radar return came in and was dismissed, Short's aircraft sat in their perfect rows. When Japanese Zeros made their strafing runs, a single pass could destroy a dozen planes. His anti-aircraft guns sat with ammunition locked away. His radar stations were mostly unmanned. The Japanese attacked for 2 hours, almost completely uncontested. Short was relieved of command on December 17, 1941. The Roberts Commission found him guilty of dereliction of duty and errors of judgment. He was reduced in rank and forced to retire in February 1942. He died in 1949, at 69, still under the shadow of Pearl Harbor, never exonerated. Here is what haunts this story. Short was not stupid. He was not corrupt. He genuinely believed he was doing the right thing. And that is precisely what makes it so devastating. Competent? Well-meaning men who fixate on the wrong problem kill people just as efficiently as cowards do. Short had the radar data. He had the warnings. He had the aircraft and the gunners and the time. He just refused to believe that what was actually coming could really come. Number 4. Major General John P. Lucas, the general who had Rome in his hands and dropped it January 22, 1944. Operation Shingle. 40,000 Allied troops land on the beaches at Anzio, 30 miles south of Rome. There is almost no opposition. German forces in the area number fewer than 1,000 men, scattered, confused, and completely unprepared for an amphibious assault behind their lines. The road to Rome is open. Both Highway 6 and Highway 7, the main arteries feeding the German defensive line, are lightly defended. German intelligence is in chaos. The German 10th Army is at risk of being completely cut off. Winston Churchill has called this operation a wildcat. He imagines it tearing at the German rear, forcing a retreat, ending the Italian campaign months ahead of schedule. Major General John P. Lucas looks at the open beaches, the empty roads, the stunned enemy, and orders his men to dig in. John Porter Lucas was born in Kearneysville, West Virginia in 1890. He was a decorated artilleryman. a veteran of Pershing's punitive expedition and a World War I officer with a distinguished record. By 1943, he commanded the 6th Corps in Italy. He was considered one of the steadier general officers in the theater. He was also deeply, visibly pessimistic about Operation Shingle from the moment he heard about it. In his diary, Lucas wrote before the landing that he felt like a man being sent on a mission with inadequate means. He believed he needed 90,000 troops, not 40,000. He thought the timeline was reckless. He went into Anzio expecting to fail. When a commander goes into a battle believing it cannot be won, his decisions reflect that belief. Lucas had already lost Anzio in his mind before a single boot hit the beach. The Allied forces landed at 2 a.m. on January 22nd. By dawn, the beachhead was secured. German prisoners confirmed what intelligence had predicted. The enemy had been caught completely off guard. There were virtually no defensive positions between the Allied troops and the Alban Hills, the high ground that overlooked both Rome and the German supply lines. The window for exploitation was approximately 48 hours. Lucas spent it building a supply depot. He established supply dumps. He repositioned artillery. He surveyed defensive positions. He waited for every unit to be fully landed and every piece of equipment to be accounted for before he considered moving inland. His reasoning was logical in a textbook sense. If he advanced too fast and the Germans cut off his beachhead, he would lose the entire force. But what he refused to acknowledge was that inaction carried exactly the same risk, and he was giving the Germans time to eliminate it. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, the German commander in Italy, later described those first 48 hours as the most dangerous moment of the entire Italian campaign. He was moving every available unit toward Anzio at emergency speed. He knew that if the Allies pushed even 15 miles inland, the entire German position in Italy would collapse. The Allies did not push 15 miles. They dug trenches. By January 29th, 1 week after the landing, Kesselring had moved 8 full divisions to surround the beachhead. The tactical situation had completely reversed. The hunters were now the hunted. On February 16th, the Germans launched a massive counterattack with 2 panzer divisions and 4 infantry divisions. Allied lines nearly broke. The beachhead that should have been a launching point became a killing ground. Lucas was relieved on February 22, 1944. Major General Lucian Truscott replaced him and immediately ordered offensive operations. The beachhead remained under siege until late May. The Italian campaign, which Shingle was supposed to end in January, didn't conclude until June, 5 months later. Allied casualties at Anzio totaled over 43,000. Lucas returned to the United States to command a training post. He retired in 1946 and died in 1949. Churchill, furious at the outcome, said of the Anzio operation, "I had hoped that we were hurling a wildcat onto the shore, but all we got was a stranded whale." The whale's name was John P. Lucas, Yak No. 3, Lieutenant General Lesley McNair, the general who trained 90 divisions to die badly. July 25, 1944, Normandy, France. Operation Cobra, the Allied breakout from the hedgerow country that had pinned them down for 7 weeks. Lieutenant General Lesley McNair is crouched in a forward observation trench near Saint-Lô, watching 1,500 American heavy bombers approach from the south. He has come to the front personally because he wants to see how his training methods perform in the moment of maximum violence. The bombers drop their payloads. Some of the loads fall short. The trench takes a direct hit. McNair is killed instantly. So are 111 American soldiers around him. He is the highest-ranking American officer killed in combat during the entire Second World War. He dies from American bombs, and his death is, in a terrible way, a perfect metaphor for what he did to the army he built. Lesley James McNair was born in Verndale, Minnesota in 1883. He graduated from West Point in 1904, first in his class. He was brilliant, a serious artilleryman, and a dedicated student of military theory. By 1942, he had been appointed Commanding General of Army Ground Forces, the man responsible for training every ground combat unit the United States would put into the field. He trained 90 divisions, approximately 1.5 million men. His theories were elegant on paper. They were catastrophic in reality. McNair's central doctrine rested on two pillars, and both of them were wrong. Yes, the first was his armor philosophy. McNair believed that American industry could not produce heavy tanks fast enough, so he built his doctrine around light and medium tanks, primarily the M4 Sherman. He reasoned that tanks should not fight other tanks. That was the job of tank destroyers, fast, lightly armored vehicles carrying high-velocity guns. What he didn't adequately account for was that the Germans had Panthers and Tigers. The Panzer V Panther had 80 millimeters of frontal armor and a 75 millimeter gun that could penetrate a Sherman at 2,000 meters. The Sherman's gun couldn't reliably penetrate Panther frontal armor at any range. American tankers figured out what this meant the first time they met a German armored unit in the field. The kill ratio of German versus American armor in Normandy was approximately 3-to-1 in Germany's favor. An average Sherman crew could expect to be knocked out 3 to 5 times before the war ended. Some Sherman units in Normandy suffered 580% casualty rates, meaning the same tank had its crew killed and replaced nearly 6 times. The second pillar was infantry tactics. McNair believed in aggressive infantry assaults with minimal artillery preparation. He considered lengthy bombardments slow and timid. He trained his divisions to attack immediately, to keep pressure on the enemy constantly, to push through friction. Against poorly trained or demoralized opponents, this worked. Against veteran German infantry dug into the Norman hedgerows, soldiers who had been fighting since 1939, it was a death sentence. British divisions, which used extensive artillery preparation before assaults, suffered significantly lower casualty rates than comparable American divisions trained under McNair's doctrine. The Operation Cobra friendly fire incident that killed him was a direct result of his own insistence on close bombing runs, bomb lines drawn dangerously near American positions. Air Force commanders had warned him. He overruled them. He wanted to watch the effect from a forward trench. He got his answer. McNair's death was kept secret for 6 weeks. He was posthumously promoted to full general and buried in the Normandy American Cemetery. His training doctrines were gradually revised as the war continued, but 90 divisions had already been trained using his methods. The men inside those divisions were already in Europe, and they were paying for his decisions every single day. Number 2. Major General Edwin Harding, the general who sent men to die in a jungle. He never prepared them for November 30th, 1942. Buna, New Guinea. Douglas MacArthur's personal aircraft lands at a forward airstrip. MacArthur steps out and walks to where Major General Edwin Harding is standing. For 17 days, 7,000 American soldiers of the 32nd Infantry Division have been attacking a fortified Japanese position held by approximately 3,000 defenders. They have advanced 200 yards. They have lost 492 killed and 1,552 wounded. MacArthur watches an assault for approximately 10 minutes. Then he turns to Harding. "You are relieved. No explanation. no hearing. Done. It was one of the most abrupt reliefs of the entire war, and it was entirely justified. Edwin Forrest Harding was born in Maumee, Ohio in 1886. He graduated from West Point in 1909. He was a published military writer, an intellectual, someone who thought seriously about the theory of war. In September 1942, he was given command of the 32nd Infantry Division, a National Guard unit from Wisconsin and Michigan. They had trained in Louisiana. Then they were shipped to Australia, and Harding was given 6 weeks to prepare them for jungle warfare before they deployed to New Guinea. 6 weeks. For a combat environment that veterans of the Pacific Theater described as the most physically and psychologically brutal in the entire war. Harding did not use those 6 weeks effectively. The first problem was equipment. Harding's men arrived in New Guinea in steel helmets, wool uniforms, and leather boots. In a tropical jungle where temperatures exceeded 100 degrees and humidity hovered near saturation, wool caused heat exhaustion. Leather boots rotted and fell apart within days. Men who were supposed to be fighting were fighting their own gear. This was a leadership failure. A commanding general preparing his division for a specific environment has the responsibility to ensure that environment has been studied and that equipment is appropriate. Harding hadn't done that work. The second problem was disease prevention. Within 2 weeks of arriving in New Guinea, malaria cases in the 32nd exceeded combat casualties. By December 1942, 30% of the division was too sick to fight. So preventive medicine protocols had not been drilled. Men were falling to insects while the Japanese waited in their bunkers. The third and most damning problem was tactics. The Japanese at Buna had built an extraordinary defensive network. Their bunkers were constructed from coconut palm logs, dense, fibrous timber that absorbed small arms fire and deflected most grenade blasts. The positions had interlocking fields of fire designed specifically to destroy any frontal assault. Harding ordered frontal assaults, wave after wave, infantry advancing in open ground against positions that those infantry could not destroy with the weapons they were carrying. He did not effectively coordinate air support. He did not bring up adequate artillery. He did not adapt when the initial attacks failed. But he repeated the same approach, the approach that had been failing for 17 consecutive days, and expected different results. MacArthur flew up personally and saw enough in 10 minutes to end Harding's command. Lieutenant General Robert Eichelberger replaced Harding and immediately overhauled everything. Combined arms coordination, close air support using medium bombers against the log bunkers, flamethrowers brought up to clear positions that bullets couldn't penetrate. The approach Harding should have developed after the first failed assault. Buna fell in January 1943, 5 weeks after Harding was relieved. Total casualties of the 32nd at Buna, 9,688. Of those, 3,095 were killed or wounded in combat. The remaining 6,593 were disease casualties, men who got sick because their commander hadn't prepared them for the environment. 1 division, 1 battle, 9,688 casualties. Harding returned to the United States and commanded training divisions for the rest of the war. He retired in 1946 as a brigadier general. He died in 1970 at the age of 83, long outliving most of the men whose suffering he had caused. Veterans of the 32nd never forgot Buna. Many never forgave the man who sent them there unprepared. Number 1. Major General Lloyd Fredendall, the general who hid in a cave while his men were slaughtered. February 14, 1943. The Kasserine Pass, western Tunisia. The pass is a 2-mile gap in the Grand Dorsal mountain chain. Steep rocky walls on both sides, a narrow valley floor. The Americans holding it are young, undertrained, and spread thin. Most of them have never seen serious combat. Their equipment is good. Their morale is uncertain, and their commanding general is 70 miles away, underground in a cave. At dawn, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel's Africa Corps moves. 140 tanks, 4 infantry battalions, artillery, motorcycle reconnaissance units threading through the passes on both flanks. The American positions collapse within hours. By the time the sun sets on February 14th, the German spearhead has punched through the pass and is moving north and west, directly toward the Allied supply depots that feed the entire Tunisian campaign. Some American units are retreating in disorder. Some are simply running. Their commanding general is not watching this unfold from a forward command post. He is not near the fighting. He is reading reports in the most elaborate personal headquarters ever constructed by an American general in the European theater. A complex of tunnels blasted into a rocky ravine, reinforced with timber and stone, with private quarters designed to his personal specifications. An engineer battalion spent 3 weeks building it, while American boys were dying at the pass. Lloyd Fredendall was born in Cheyenne, Wyoming in 1883. He failed the West Point entrance examination twice before finally receiving a commission in 1907. He rose steadily through the interwar years, not through brilliance, but through the grinding longevity of military peacetime service. General George Marshall called him one of the best officers in the Army. He recommended Fredendall to Eisenhower personally for the North African Command. This remains one of Marshall's most baffling endorsements in retrospect. Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of North Africa, launched November 8, 1942. Fredendall commanded the Central Task Force landing at Oran. The landing succeeded. He was promoted to command the Second Corps, tasked with advancing through Tunisia. He proceeded to demonstrate, systematically and comprehensively, that he was incapable of handling the responsibility. The failures of Lloyd Fredendall divide into 4 categories, each more stunning than the last. First, the bunker. Fredendall's command post was 70 miles from the front lines he was supposed to be commanding. 70 miles. The entire 19th Engineer Battalion, men who could have been building roads, repairing bridges, preparing defensive positions, spent 3 weeks blasting tunnels into a ravine wall to create his private quarters. Eisenhower later said the construction had consumed resources that should have gone to actual combat preparation. The other generals in the theater were appalled when they saw it. Fredendall never visited the front. He issued orders from his underground palace and read reports. He had no personal understanding of the terrain his men were being asked to defend. Second, the code. Fredendall communicated by radio using a personal coded language that he had invented himself. It was not a standard military cipher, yet it was a collection of idiosyncratic slang and oblique references that only made sense if you knew how his mind worked. One actual order issued by Fredendall during the campaign read, "Move your command," that is, the walking boys, pop guns, Baker's outfit, and the outfit, which is the reverse of Baker's, to the place I showed you where the accident occurred. No unit commander could decode this. Field commanders were receiving orders they couldn't understand during a fast-moving armored battle. Third, the chain of command. Rather than issuing orders through his division and regimental commanders, Fredendall frequently contacted battalion commanders directly, bypassing 2 levels of command hierarchy. Battalion commanders would receive conflicting orders from 2 different levels simultaneously, but division and regimental commanders didn't know what their units had been ordered to do. The command structure disintegrated. Fourth, the alliances. Fredendall openly despised his French allies and insulted the British officers coordinating with his corps. In a campaign that depended entirely on Allied cooperation, where French intelligence covered terrain the Americans hadn't mapped and British armor could plug gaps the Americans couldn't, Fredendall systematically destroyed the relationships that could have saved his corps. When Rommel attacked, there was no coordinated Allied response because Fredendall had made coordination impossible. The attack through Kasserine Pass lasted from February 14th to February 22nd, 1943. In 8 days, our German forces penetrated 50 miles into Allied territory, the deepest German advance against American forces in the entire European theater. American casualties totaled 6,500. 4,000 men were captured. Enormous quantities of equipment, fuel, and supplies were lost. Eisenhower visited the front on February 13th, the day before the attack, and was visibly shocked by what he found. Units were badly positioned. Defenses were incoherent. The general himself seemed detached from reality. Eisenhower knew. He waited. Then Kasserine happened. Fredendall was relieved on March 6, 1943. George Patton replaced him. Within 10 days, the Second Corps was a different organization. Discipline tightened, morale surged, and the incoherent command structure was rebuilt from the ground up. Within 2 months, now the Second Corps won decisively at El Ghoutar, the first clear American ground victory against the German army. The same soldiers, different general, different result. Fredendall returned to the United States and was, inexplicably, infuriatingly, promoted to lieutenant general. He was given command of the Second Army, a training post, and spent the rest of the war far from any enemy. He retired in 1946. He died in 1963 at the age of 79. His obituary mentioned his service, but not Kasserine Pass. Military historians have reached a verdict on Lloyd Fredendall that is about as unanimous as historical verdicts get. He is, without meaningful competition, the worst American general of World War II. Not because his failures were the most catastrophic in raw numbers, though 6,500 casualties in 8 days is devastating, but because every single failure was personal. The bunker, the code, the chain of command, the alienated allies. None of those were imposed on him. He chose them. He chose comfort over command. He chose isolation over understanding. He chose his own security over the lives of every man under him. 6,500 Americans paid the price. 5 generals, 5 failures, 5 different flavors of the same fundamental betrayal. Walter Short had every warning and prepared for the wrong enemy. He could not imagine what was actually coming. John Lucas had an open road to Rome and chose to stand still. He had already surrendered before the battle began. Lesley McNair built the Army's doctrine around theories that the battlefield immediately disproved. He institutionalized his mistakes into 90 divisions. Edwin Harding sent men into the deadliest jungle environment on Earth wearing wool uniforms and ordered them to charge log bunkers with rifles. He never adapted, never learned, never changed. Lloyd Fredendall hid in a hole in the ground while his men died at Kasserine Pass. He communicated in a code nobody could read, bypassed his own command structure, and alienated every ally who might have helped him. He is the standard against which American military failure is measured. But here is what matters most about these 5 men. Their failures were not secrets. They were studied. They were documented. They were turned into case studies, into doctrine, and into the hard lessons that future commanders had to internalize before they were trusted with command. The United States Army that fought in 1944 and 1945 was measurably better than the army that walked into Kasserine Pass. Not because the soldiers were different, but because the leaders learned. Eisenhower learned what to look for in a corps commander. Marshall learned to verify his endorsements. The Army learned what combined arms coordination actually meant in a jungle, at an amphibious landing, in an armored breakthrough. The blood at Pearl Harbor, Anzio, Buna, and Kasserine built the wisdom that won the war. That does not make any of it acceptable. It does not balance the ledger. 6,500 men died at Kasserine Pass. 492 at Buna in 17 days. 2,403 at Pearl Harbor in 2 hours. Those men deserved better. Every one of them. If this video changed how you understand World War II leadership, if it showed you that the war was not just won by brilliance, but also survived in spite of failure, hit the like button. Every like tells YouTube that real, honest military history matters. Subscribe if you want more of this, not the sanitized version, the full story, the hard truth, the names and numbers that most channels skip over. Drop a comment right now and tell us, which of these 5 generals do you think deserved a court-martial? And where in the world are you watching from? This community spans every continent, and every single one of you is keeping real history alive. Turn on notifications, because we are not done. Thank you for staying until the end. These failures deserve to be remembered, not to condemn the dead, but to protect the living.